Okay, we're live now.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the September meeting of the Allegheny County Jail Oversight Board. I'm Judge Kim Clark, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. And we're going to do a roll call and just the rules. The rules are that everyone in the meeting will be treated with dignity and respect. There's never any exception to that rule. I would just ask the members of the board, we have a really full agenda tonight. And so I want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to be heard. So I am going to do sort of a roll call for comments to make sure that everyone who wants to weigh in on a particular issue or motion or thing gets an opportunity to speak. So when I call your name, you can unmute and you can speak. That doesn't mean that at other times you won't be able to ask questions, but we do want to move the meeting along, and I want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard if they wish to be heard. So I'm going to call the roll, and would you please answer here when I call your name? Councilwoman Hallam?
Here.
County Executive Fitzgerald?
Steve Polarski sitting in.
Mr. Abbas Kamara?
I am Mr. Abbas's proxy for this meeting.
All right, thank you. Ms. Terry Klein?
Here.
Judge Beth Lazara? And Judge Lazara has indicated she will be joining us later, so she's not here right now. Ms. Moss?
Yes, here.
Sheriff Mullen?
Here.
And Ms. Wagner?
Yes, I am here. I would just ask, I am not aware from being on this board of any procedures for proxy votes.
I think the rules are silent to that, but looking at Robert's Rules of Order, unless there's a specific.
Yes, that's never happened.
Well, I understand that, but people have filled in for other people. So I guess Mr. Pilar can fill in for Mr. Kamara if he's asked. I don't know. You have filled in Mr. Korinsky, and you're not a member of the board, so I don't know that I would ask you to mute until you make your presentation. Ms. Hallam?
Yes, so the rule for elected officials who are designated representatives on this board, having proxies and representatives is different from community members who are appointed to this board having proxies and representatives. Appointed community members are not able to have proxies vote for them in a voting meeting, and that's what this is.
Does that say that in the rules?
It says who is designated to be on this board, and top of the community members. It says absolutely nothing about proxies voting, and so I can pull up the statute and we can reference that.
I understand what the statute is, but we have historically had people fill in for other people on the board.
For non-elected official members.
Your Honor, I wouldn't have said that unless we have in our controller's vault here the records of the Jail Oversight Board going back to the Civil War. I have reviewed all of those. Frankly, I care about the Jail Oversight Board a great deal. I think people know that. We have had members vote. I mean, Ms. Parise has voted for County Executive Fitzgerald. I have voted for Ms. Wagner. We have never had a proxy for a community member giving that proxy to another member of the board. That has never happened. I am willing to go back through 100 years of Jail Oversight Board
and I don't doubt you.
Documents. That has never happened, and it's all because of Mr. Garcia.
I would say that I don't doubt that the records from the Oversight Board that you have kept in the vaults are correct. I don't doubt that. I guess the question for me, is there a difference? Do we make a distinction between a community member having someone speak on their behalf as opposed to an elected official? So
Judge Clark, the statute does clarify that it does clarify who can have a representative and who cannot.
I get that. But really, the statute only says that two people can have a representative, which is me and the head of county council. But those historically, those have not been the only people that have had representatives. So that's all I'm saying. We can have, maybe Mr. Baccarat can look that up, and I'll pull up the statute. We're not voting on anything at the beginning of the meeting anyway. So your point is well taken. So we'll look at that. Thank you. All right. So the first thing on our agenda is a presentation, and that is going to be an update on the referendum regarding Allegheny County Code Chapter 205 and a presentation about CSAU, and that is Warden Harper. And so I would ask that we let him do the presentation, and then we can take some time for questions. I would just say we have a full discussion about that on the agenda, so I would really like to have those questions saved for that time, but you may have a question that's burning right at the moment that you may want to ask. So I'm not obviously going to preclude that, but we will be having a full discussion. And I just would like to be able to move the meeting along. So, Warden Harper.
Greg, is it possible that you may need to provide permission for us to share the presentation?
Oh, Mr. Sykes.
No, you should be able to screen share.
We're there.
Do you see a little up button? It says share content. That should
Yes.
allow you.
That is what we've selected. There is no capacity to select any of the screens.
Okay. Yeah, you're in here. You have full permissions on my end. I'm sorry. Is it a PowerPoint? Because I could try to share it if you would like.
Yeah, it's a PowerPoint.
Do you want to quickly email it to me and I'll try to do it on my end? Sorry, but you do have full permissions on my end.
Mr. Sykes, we're going to send it to your email right now.
Okay, I'll make sure I get it and share it.
Mr. Sykes, we might have to do this as a OneDrive or through a Teams share.
No problem. I can do either.
Hey, Judge Clark, could I recommend that we go ahead with community corrections first while we work through this problem, please?
That's an excellent idea. So we'll do that, and just let me know. We'll just sort of move down the agenda, and when you're ready, let us know. All right. So we have the community corrections reports. Can we hear from the program for offenders, please?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'll start with a little COVID update. While we're still plugging along. We've got about 75% of the staff fully vaccinated, and we're running about 25% still unvaccinated. We're working every week to encourage and provide vaccination to any client who wants it. We did have one positive case diagnosed this week in our female site, but luckily it remained an isolated incident, and so far everyone else has tested negative. So hopefully we've contained that. In addition to our drug and alcohol treatment, we've had our residents participating in some expressive art therapy groups, a trauma group, and a Parents in the Know group provided by PAR. An exciting one of our male residents was just chosen to speak at an alumni event at the Trade Institute of Pittsburgh, so he's very excited about that. And both of our sites, male and female, will be participating in the annual recovery walk next Saturday on September 11th. Some will be able to participate in person and some will participate through the virtual end. And that's pretty much all the news going on over at our sites right now. So if anyone has any questions, be happy to take any.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Bender?
No, I'd just like to say thank you for bringing up the recovery walk coming up next weekend. And if anyone who is able, please come and join. It's on September 11th, and it's in honor of everyone who is celebrating recovery, folks who have lost loved ones to overdose. And so please just come out and show support. I know I'll be there.
Where does the walk begin? Where do people convene?
North Shore.
The North Shore? All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So can we hear from the renewal, please?
Yes, good afternoon. Adam Zach reporting for Renewal Incorporated. We are working on getting veterans groups on a bi-weekly basis. Someone's going to come in from the Veterans Administration and meet with our men and women veterans for resources and support groups. Also with the veterans, the Veteran Leadership Program is sponsoring an event called Stand Down Pittsburgh. That's going to be on October 9th, and they're going to provide free services for veterans, including benefits, vocation, employment, eye care, clothing, food, etc. So we're hoping we get a lot of our men and women veterans to go there. And like the program for offenders, we'll also have staff and resident participation in the recovery walk coming up next week.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Thank you. And then we have electronic monitoring.
Good afternoon, all. Steve Westwine for the probation office. Outside of the report that we have submitted, we have nothing new to report this month. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
So then we'll move on the agenda to a review of the minutes for the August 5th meeting. Those were sent out by Ms. Carroll, and I hope you've had an opportunity to review those. If so, I'll entertain any additions or corrections or a motion at this time.
I have a correction.
Yes.
On the report that I gave on page 23, it says, I think the third line down, that we were talking about the executive director at Torrance, and it says he, but the executive director is a woman, Roberta Lawrence, who is the executive director.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll make that correction. Any other additions or corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve with that correction.
All right, so we have a motion to approve with the correction. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved with the correction. And I just want to thank Ms. Carroll. It's a big job to do that, and she does an excellent job. So thank you. So then we'll turn to old business. So the first thing I have is resuming in-person meetings. And so the board did have an executive session, and one of the things that we did talk about is the numbers have sort of risen and whether we wanted to resume in-person meetings. And I think, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, we decided that right now we should still meet virtually in this format until there's some change in the numbers. Is that accurate? All right. Anything else? All right, with that. All right. So the next meeting will be virtual as well. And then we're going to have an update from Mr. Korinsky on the GTL money, from GTL regarding the money left on the tablets after the incarcerated individual leaves the facility. Mr. Korinsky, where'd you go? Oh, there you are.
Here I am, Your Honor. I'm bouncing around the controller's office. In response to a lot of the concerns that board members in the community had regarding what happens to monies left on the tablets when citizens leave the jail, I did contact GTL and also the agent that the county has retained, Praeses, which is Praeses, which is a technology company for vendors doing business in the jail. Spoke to both Tom Gibney from GTL and Aaron Fraser from Praeses. They could not have been more accommodating and generous with their time. Spoke to GTL for about 30 minutes. The big takeaways from that, Your Honor, are one, GTL does have a process when people leave the jail to get the money back from the tablets, including the monies that are given by the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund. That is through a phone call to GTL. Two, GTL does not keep any monies that are left on the books. That remains on the books until someone contacts them. So there is no concern with GTL taking anything that we are given. Three, GTL is working with the warden and the jail to have a system in place, which I expect to be in place in the next 60 days, that would enable citizens, when they leave the jail, to have a card that would get them their money without having to call GTL and having it claimed, which is actually something that a lot of jails, probably most jails, don't have, and is a very forward thinking program by Allegheny County. So from the perspective of the Controller's Office and the jail board, knowing your concerns at this meeting, I was very pleased with the response I got from GTL and praises.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you did on helping to figure this out, Mr. Korinsky. Does anyone have any questions? All right. I don't believe this requires any action by the board other than our deep thanks to Mr. Korinsky. So I'm going to skip the next thing on under old business because I think they're still trying to figure out the PowerPoint unless they're ready to do that presentation. And I would note for the record, Judge Lazara is with us. All right, so then we'll move to
I'm very, very sorry for being late. I had an obligation. It's for school and I'm here now and I apologize for the late start.
That's not an issue. So can we move to your report? Are you ready to do your report? Because we need the warden for the other stuff and they're trying to get us a PowerPoint presentation up and
sure.
There's a little difficulty. All right, so we'll skip down to the Incarcerated Welfare Fund Subcommittee report.
I have to say that I have a committee that they are filled with. My committee is filled with movers and shakers, and they are definitely working very hard. And I appreciate all of their help every single time we have meetings. I wanted to start with. I think we should start with Ms. Terry Klein has an update for the jail survey. Which this subcommittee sort of got on the roll. So it's been moving forward, and I would not like to steal Terry's thunder because she definitely has done so much work on this, and I would like her to provide that report.
Sure, thank you. I received an email from Dean Farmer from the School of Social Work, who is spearheading survey. At August 27th, had received 1,109 completed surveys with data still.
Can hear you.
Can we hold on, Ms. Klein? I'm having difficulty. Can everybody? I'm going to mute. Sorry, I muted myself before I was done. Your voice is kind of low, so I don't know if you can speak up a little bit, but and everyone else, if you could mute so that we don't get any feedback.
Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. So, all right. As of August 27th, Dean Farmer from the Pitt School of Social Work had received 1,129 completed surveys with data still needed from 5 pods. She expects to have around 1,300 surveys when she is done. She let me know that respondents are being more open and expressive than what she expected. So she's had to hire additional people to go through the surveys. She's planning to have a report completed by late fall. So I would just like to extend my appreciation to the people at the jail for allowing the survey to be handed out and collected.
Absolutely. And that's, I'm so impressed with the numbers that of people that have participated and the fact that there is so much good feedback. So I'm thinking that that's going to help all of us determine as we move forward, what the needs are and what we can do. So we're really excited about that survey. So thank you, Terry, for that. The other thing that we met about is the jail oversight board liaison position. We had a very good meeting where we talked about that. I know that the one that I missed because I was on vacation, I apologize. There were some questions about that liaison position and whether we wanted to continue with it. So we had a very good discussion about that position. And I think that I speak on behalf of my entire committee. We're very unanimous in this, that we really believe that this position would be exceptionally helpful for everyone. And I was trying to figure out a good way to describe that for the folks in the public and on this board to understand. And what I came up with is, I'm the domestic violence court judge right now. And a lot of domestic violence court cases are he said, she said. And really, that's what it comes down to for this jail oversight board as well. We get the he said, she said. We get what the jail says and we get what the public says. And a lot of times they don't meet, which is the same way that I have to do it with every non-jury case involving domestic violence in my courtroom. And it's oftentimes hard to sort through those he said, she says. But generally when the evidence is presented, you'll find a fact or two that will help you decide which way the decision should come down in a case. And I think if we had this jail oversight board liaison who could go into the jail and sort of try to figure out where it stands. So for example, the public sends a letter complaining that there is no hot water for the showers. The jail says that there is. The jail liaison can go down, jail oversight board liaison, and can test and see, is there hot water? Are there problems with the hot waters at certain times of the day? And that person can be there. And maybe they find out that that complaint is not accurate. And so that helps support the jail and the jail administration by discovering what the case was. Now, maybe there's another situation where, there's a problem with the food and the person goes down and discovers that maybe it's not quite the way it's being reported from the jail. But it's a way for us to figure out what is the facts when we're not there. And even if we do our statutory duty and go down to the jail for visits, we're not going to be in the jail often enough to be able to really ascertain he said, she said, which way it really is. And so the jail liaison position would very much help us accomplish that. So we talked a great deal and we came up with a motion. This is the second motion. And I would like to present that motion, and then I know that there may be some questions or comments. So the motion is, on June 3rd, 2021, the Jail Oversight Board voted in favor of a motion presented by the IIWF subcommittee, which authorized a liaison position for the Jail Oversight Board in order to assist it in fulfilling its statutory obligations. In furtherance of this June motion, it is so moved that the Jail Oversight Board shall create a full-time salaried position of an independent Jail Oversight Board liaison. The position shall be established by the end of business on September 30th, 2021. And we say the position is established. That does not mean that there will be a person hired. That is just to make sure that all the paperwork is done to establish the position, with the search to fill the position beginning immediately thereafter. The proposed job description for the position is attached to this motion and incorporated into it. The search to fill the position shall be conducted by the IIWF subcommittee of the Jail Oversight Board with the assistance of any additional individuals designated by the Jail Oversight Board chair. The IIWF shall pay for all costs associated with the position, which shall not exceed $85,000 for salary and all benefits. Salary and benefits shall be subject to the regular review of and potential modification by the Jail Oversight Board. I don't know if you want me to read the Jail Oversight Board liaison job description. It was attached.
I think it's pretty lengthy. I would suggest not. We have the motion. I think we should have some discussion. I do have a couple of questions, but we have a motion. I don't know whether anyone wants to second the motion, and then we have the discussion. Ms. Hallam?
I'll second that motion.
All right. So these are the issues that I want to raise. When the board voted, and I guess it was it at June, at the June meeting?
Yes, June 3rd.
So after that meeting, the next round of public comments, I received several public comments, comments from the public. They were very sort of upset that the board voted on it at that meeting and they didn't get a chance, the public didn't get a chance to weigh in, because some of the public feels very strongly about taking a salary from the money that belongs to the residents of the jail. So that's one issue. The other issue that I have, or the one thing that I might suggest, is that we have not gotten the results of the survey yet, which is supposed to kind of guide how the use of the funds from the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund. And maybe we need to see what the survey results say before we go further with this position. The third thing is the board does not have the authority to enter into the contracts or hire, I don't believe, or supervise this person. So I'm not sure how that would work. And then the other thing is, while the salary is fairly high compared to other county salaries, including, for example, starting salaries of public defenders and district attorneys. And so that's a regular kind of big chunk of money that would come out of, if we approve it, the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund plus benefits. So
the salary would not be, the salary would not be 85,000. That would be inclusive of everything. So, what is it? 40% is benefits or something. So, the salary would be much lower than $85,000. That would be the entire amount. Just so we're clear. I'm sorry.
Right. So I guess the two biggest points I have is, one is that after the June meeting, the public really requested an opportunity to weigh in on it. And so while we have this motion and now they can read it on the website, they can read the job description, I think they're more informed, and I think we should hear from the public on it. And the other thing is, we have the survey, and I'd like to see what the survey says, tells us, informs us before we sort of go further. It's kind of ironic, because I know I've said at many of the meetings how I think the board, now that we have all the subcommittees, it's really hard for the board to do all of the things. But this money does belong to the incarcerated individuals. And so I want to make sure that we keep that in mind when we're deciding to use money for this purpose, and I guess really to help the board. So that's all.
Well, and I think, Judge Clark, that the Controller's Office was going to have some discussion about, the other uses of the IIWF fund, so that everyone on this board would have a comparison for like what it's been used for in the past, and why this goes very directly to our mission of ensuring health and welfare in the jail, because it gives us an opportunity to have eyes and ears in the jail, which is the most important thing that we don't have. So I don't know, Brad, if Chelsea is on, and I don't know, maybe if Chelsea can maybe address that.
So I would just throw one thing out there too. I do believe we do have some very good eyes and ears with the Prison Society, who contributes greatly. They don't obviously work for the board, but they have helped us with some of our committees, and they are in there regularly, and they are very well trained to do things like interview residents in the jail and so forth. And so I'm just going to throw that out there. And I do believe, I think one of the things that was really pleased about with this particular board is that I do think we have really kind of are using the funds for things that they should be. And during this pandemic, one of the things that I'm very grateful for is the ongoing motions that we have every month to use these funds to help the residents stay in touch with their families, which I think is huge, and to have money, you know, that they're able to do that, because it's been really challenging during the pandemic. So that's all I'm done. I just wanted to share my concerns. The other part is how it would work, who supervises, who they report to. I mean, there's a whole host of things, because, you know, I don't think any of us should be the supervisors because we're the board members, but that's probably for another discussion. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Wagner then.
Thank you. And I want to thank Judge Lazara also. I know a lot of work has gone into this. Just to give a few specifics, I know the board has this within your materials, which is the financials of the Incarcerated Individual Welfare Expense Fund. As of 8/31 of this year, the balance is roughly 2.3 million. And then just to give some examples, as Judge Lazara referenced, in the past, we have made allocations in addition to what Judge Clark had mentioned, as we've been doing every month, to clothing, to the Hope Pod, to Batterers Intervention, to the Discharge Center. Just to name a few examples. So generally speaking, what we have seen is that these monies are being used to best serve the incarcerated individuals. And from the work of this committee, I would certainly say that we've done significant due diligence, and certainly believe that having this person would be incredibly important to help the duties of this board in terms of looking after the health and welfare of those in jail. So relatively speaking, it is not a large amount. And I think, as we've discussed in future years, this could be something that could be specifically allocated by county council, for example, or perhaps even grant funds. But it would be something that would allow this to begin. And then I would also just mention, to support Judge Lazara's point on the salary, that would also be comparable to beginning auditor positions, to give an example, within the controller's office. So again, not $85,000 as a salary, but inclusive of benefits.
Does anyone have any questions for Judge Lazara or for Ms. Wagner or anyone else that's on the committee? All right, then hearing no questions, I guess I will call for a vote. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
All right, it looks like we have two. I'm going to do a roll call because I think I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. So just so Ms. Carroll can make a good record. Ms. Hallam?
Yes.
Mr. Pilarski?
No.
Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Judge Lazara?
Yes.
Ms. Moss?
Abstain.
All right, Sheriff Mullen?
Yes.
Ms. Wagner?
Yes.
All right, the motion is then carried. All right, I think the warden, thank you, Judge Lazara, and thank the committee. I know it was a lot of work. Warden Harper, are you ready for your presentation?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
All right, so we're going to go back to the presentation.
Mr. Sykes, if you can go to slide 1, please, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Can everybody see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
So good afternoon, board. I would like to ask the board to allow me and Mr. Garcia to complete our presentation. And at the end of our presentation, we will answer any questions that you may have. As the warden of this jail, it is my responsibility to administer policies, programs, and personnel operations. But the job is much more complex than that. Ultimately, the safety and health of inmates and staff falls on me. One of my biggest frustrations is how little is understood about the operation of this facility and how well-intentioned efforts have significant and sometimes negative consequences. As a correctional professional with over 30 years of experience in this field, I can tell you that is exactly what has happened here. Slide number 2, please. The Allegheny County Jail recorded an average daily population of 1,688 individuals this year to date. The vast majority of those living in our jail are compliant to requests from correctional employees. They enter and leave the facility with no problems. A small number of inmates, however, are non-compliant with the necessary requests, and even after de-escalation and other options are utilized, must be forcibly removed from their cells. This is a last resort and an option that is discouraged by, but sometimes necessary. Slide number 3, please, Mr. Sykes. Chapter 205, approved by the electorate earlier this year, prohibits the use of the restraint chair, chemical agents, leg shackles on any person in the custody of the jail. According to the American Correctional Association, the best practice to gain compliance before CERT has to enter a cell to physically remove an inmate is the use of chemical agents. As an alternative to hands-on use of force, chemical agents are 90% successful. Beginning December the 6th, correctional officers will no longer have chemical agents available, nor will staff be able to utilize leg shackles or the restraint chair. The prohibition on leg shackles is a problem for which we still are researching a solution. The loss of leg irons is a tool that directly impacts the transportation of inmates by correctional officers and also raises concerns and other issues when an inmate is hospitalized, including making that person a potential flight risk that could put the general public in danger. Slide number 4, please. In my professional opinion, the prohibition against chemical agents will result in more injuries, more confrontations, more safety issues, and that those incidents will continue to escalate. Our correctional staff are already working in extraordinary circumstances, but the lack of tools and resources will put their safety and well-being in jeopardy. When de-escalation tactics and diversionary tactics are unsuccessful, the inmate remains non-compliant, a forced hands-on cell extraction becomes necessary. That process involves sending a minimum of 5 team members who leave their prospective jobs at the facility, potentially leaving other areas short-staffed, to report to the pod where they are needed. Team members look like SWAT, but are actually CERT, for Correctional Emergency Response Teams. CERT members wear a helmet, shield, body armor, protection for their arms and legs, and then also must carry tools including handcuffs, shackles, shield, chemical agent if appropriate. Before the physical entry of a cell, CERT members use chemical agent to soften the inmate and encourage compliance. Overall, that effort is successful 90% of the time, and no further action is needed. You can see from the slide how many times we have deployed chemical agent over the last 3 years. Slide number 5, please. Now compare it to this slide, which reflects the number of times that a cell extraction has occurred. Once chemical agents are removed, the number of cell extractions will increase. If you assume that these incidents are not otherwise resolved, the CERT members would have been involved in 84 cell extractions in 2018, 131 cell extractions in 2019, 71 cell extractions in 2020, rather than the numbers that you see here. This is the reason why we sought other tools and options. Slide number 6, please. Cell extractions are risky for the inmates and for the team members. This is actual video of a cell extraction from February of 2016 conducted by our CERT team. This extraction was ordered because the inmate was non-compliant with required medications necessary for his physical health. Chemical agents was utilized first, but the inmate used materials to shield his eyes, nose, and mouth from the spray. As a result, the physical entry was necessary. Could you please play the video?
Guys, let me know when we're all secure. Thank you, John. Thank you, John. All on your stomach. Put your hands behind your back. Now, give me your arm. Put your hands behind your back. Guys, we're secure. We all secure? Guys, hold in there on notify nurses. Wait. Let me know when you're good. Good? Yeah. All right, hold him there. All right. Good, I need help.
Yeah, let's do a little test.
Straight down, cell area.
Having a team come in that looks like SWAT and which is going on, having a team come in that looks like SWAT and which is going to physically restrain the inmate can make situations worse. To avoid additional cell extractions and more risk to our inmate staff, we sought additional training and tools as a resource for correctional officers. Can you go to slide 7, please? Sometimes it's hard to get over. Okay. Accordingly, the jail entered into 3 separate sole source contracts. A sole source contract, by its nature, is not competitively bidded because what is being sought is unique as it relates to their essential function. After research on the company and outreach to other correctional technical training companies, it was determined that the training and strategies provided by the Correctional Special Applications Unit was uniquely qualified to meet the goals of the jail and provide the best options available. This video is actual footage from a cell extraction using the Correctional Special Applications Unit strategies and approaches. Can you please show the video, please?
Come back towards me. Okay, listen. I got it. Okay, can you back up towards me? You're doing amazing, man. You're doing amazing. Come on, back up towards me. Okay. All right. I'm gonna tell you to jump on the boat. You're good, my man. Everything's really good. Thanks for your time. You're doing fine. Okay, now I'm going with you. Yep, come on back. Back up. You're doing awesome, man. Thank you. Got to stay this front. You're doing amazing, man. Walk back up towards me. Okay, come on back up here. You're doing awesome. Over to your left. You're doing very good, man. Okay, there you go, man. Just put your head against the wall. All right, that's what you look like. Let's sit down. Awesome. We're gonna take care of you real quick. Put you back in there. You want some to drink? Get some what? How about I get you some water? Want some water?
I just need everyone to be aware that this inmate is a schizophrenic inmate that just broke the jaw of a nurse at that facility. The Correction Special Applications Unit was called, and the incident resulted in the inmate having no force placed against them. Can we go to slide number 8, please?
The CSAU training and strategies ensures compliance with the recent referendum and also enhances the jail's ability to address and respond to all circumstances. Specifically, specialized training, which will last for 8 weeks, is already underway to a first group of correctional officers to ensure they have the skill sets needed to manage every emergent situation. The emphasis is on using the lowest level of force options while resolving emergent situations quickly and with minimum disruption to other inmates as well as staff. Senior team leader Joseph Garcia, as well as every other contractor with CSAU, went through the jail's rigorous security checks before being granted access to the facility, just like all other contractors who perform work at the jail. These reviews include National Crime Information Center or NCIC checks. In addition to the county jail, Mr. Garcia has also been vetted and granted access to provide training at 66 other facilities, including 52 law enforcement agencies and 14 departments of corrections across 35 states. He has also been vetted, granted access, and provided training in 7 other countries, including in England. I want to be clear here. The methods used by CSAU that have been highlighted in emails, faxes, videos, and other communications are not what will be utilized at the Allegheny County Jail. The facility is not using pepper spray, beanbag projectiles, or canines, to name just a few. The training being provided is very specific to the needs of the Allegheny County Jail. When you enter a restaurant, you have a full menu of options to choose from, but few of us order everything. Likewise, when we go into a store, we don't need to buy every item on the shelf. Even though CSAU offers a broad spectrum of training and services, we have selected only those items we know we need. Often incidents that would utilize the team's skills because of non-compliance are as a result of behavioral health concerns, mental health diagnoses, not taking prescribed medications, or due to drug or alcohol crisis. Can we move to slide 9, please? Today's correctional facilities are, in many cases, also mental health facilities. 40% of the jail's current population are on some type of mental health medication. Slide 10, Mr. Sykes. The number of people taking mental health medications is not a true picture of mental health in the facility. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, 20.6% of U.S. adults experienced mental illness in 2019, which represents 1 in 5 adults. The National Institute of Mental Health estimates that only half of people with mental illness receive treatment. We also know from the CDC that measures necessary to reduce the spread of COVID-19, which are heightened in the jail, can make people feel isolated and lonely and increase stress and anxiety. In the 8-week CSAU training, staff are receiving the most advanced training and will have the skills and tools to de-escalate, as well as recognize individuals suffering from mental health crisis, drug and alcohol crisis, and behavioral management problems. That portion of the training is presented in the very first week and then reinforced and tested in the remaining 7 weeks so that it always remains at the forefront of their response. Slide 11, please. CSAU members wear gray uniforms. They are not outfitted with helmets, but instead have body protection and other protective gear. They carry tools including handcuffs and tasers, and also carry rescue items including a first aid kit. CSAU team members are assigned to walk the facility when on duty. It is intended to create a less intimidating environment and provide an opportunity to allow inmates to get used to seeing these personnel and to allow these officials to establish a relationship with the inmates. It's something that the jail administration does on an ongoing basis for exactly those same reasons. The training also covers steps that are taken before CSAU is requested, as well as after a member arrives. In any incident where an inmate is non-compliant, supervisory staff will be called first and utilized to de-escalate the situation. If unsuccessful, medical and mental health staff will be called and will also be used to de-escalate the situation.
So,
practice.
Before you go further, can you please, for the purposes of the minutes and the board, identify who's speaking?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. This is Chief Deputy Warden Beeson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. These practices have already been put in place. An incident last week resulted in compliance by the inmate after interaction with and de-escalation by the supervisor and medical mental health staff. Can we go to slide 12, please? If those efforts are unsuccessful, the CSAU team will be called to the scene where they will also try to de-escalate the situation. Based on their training and evaluation of what is occurring with the inmate, this can also mean that the supervisor and or medical mental health staff will be requested to continue to interact with the inmate to attempt to gain compliance. If and only if all other de-escalation options have failed, the jail's CSAU trained team will have the ability to use force to remove an inmate from a location or move them to another location, as is currently the case in our jail and at corrections facilities across the country. This can include a variety of tools such as kinetic energy delivery systems. These items are specifically designed to reduce the likelihood of penetration, broken bones, or severe injury. Additional tools include rubber balls and similar items that can be used for diversion or to encourage compliance with commands. Slide 13, please. Levels of force, as well as the application of force, is part of the training and is determined on a case-by-case basis that is reliant upon the actions of the non-compliant inmate and his or her interactions with and response to the supervisor, medical mental health staff, and the CSAU team member. All interactions with the inmate will be video recorded and reviewed by the chain of command in our internal affairs office to ensure all policies and procedures were followed and to provide for any other remedies or actions.
There have been reports that incidents that involve the use of CERT team are commonplace and that the CSAU training, these incidents will only grow. That's not the case. It remains our hope and goal to never utilize force against anyone in the jail. Unfortunately, experience tells us that is simply not the reality in the correctional facility. That being said, improvements made in training and interaction with non-compliant inmates over the past years have continued to reduce the number of cell extractions needed to be done. Slide number 14, please. The CSAU contract has not been the jail's administration only focus. The provisions of Chapter 205 provide that a person may not be confined to a cell for more than 20 hours a day. In order to ensure that incarcerated persons have time out of cell while still ensuring appropriate safety measures, additional recreation areas have been built in the facility and are currently in use. Slide number 15, please. The restraint chair was an important tool that was used to prevent individuals from self-harm or to restrain volatile inmates. With this use prohibited, the jail has contracted with the company for the installation of 10 padded cells in the facility. 3 of the 10 will be located in our intake department, with the remainder spread throughout the facility. Padded cells are used in other facilities throughout the country to protect inmates from self-harm, including 3 county jails in Pennsylvania. And as previously noted, the jail administration is continuing to explore alternatives to leg shackles to ensure inmates and correctional employees are not assaulted with inmates using their feet and legs as weapons or to cause harm to themselves. A future update will be provided when the solution has been identified. Slide number 16, please. Finally, as we shared, the CSAU members are receiving significant training to de-escalate and recognize individuals suffering from a mental health crisis, drug and alcohol crisis, and behavior management problems. To ensure that intervention, assistance, and de-escalation is the focus at this facility, correctional staff will also be provided crisis intervention training along with mental health first aid training. This is in addition to the implicit bias training recommended by the Jail Oversight Board that is expected to begin in the near future. Next, Jail Oversight Board, I would like to introduce Mr. Joseph Garcia, the leader of the Corrections Special Applications Unit. Mr. Garcia is an expert in training officers how to identify inmates with mental health, drug and alcohol, behavior management issues. He believes everyone should be treated with dignity and respect, and that force should only be used as a last resort. He recognized that correctional agencies are now mental health facilities, and that communication and de-escalation must be exhausted prior to using any force. Now I would like to introduce to you Mr. Joseph Garcia. May I? Thank you.
Are we done with the PowerPoint? Can we, so that we can, or do you still need the PowerPoint?
I'm done with the PowerPoint, ma'am.
Okay, we can close that out. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Garcia. I'm not the type to sit in a boardroom, so I'm a little bit, I'm a people person, so I like to talk to people, and I'm having a hard time seeing back there a little bit. I'm Joseph Garcia. I'm sure that you've heard much about me from the news media, a lot of different things. One of the things that I'd like to just share with you today, if possible, is away a lot of the misconceptions of what you've heard, and understanding that I have over 27 years in law enforcement, corrections special operations. You know, I was part of the original foundation of joining CERT teams and doing what CERT teams did in the 90s. And then I discovered 2 things. One, I had a very good friend of mine who's no longer in law enforcement, who's not here with us today, who passed away in 2002. He passed away in 2002 from contracting HIV from an inmate during a 5-man cell extraction. He worked for a major DOC, and I'll never forget that individual. We became friends not because he came to our program, but because he assisted us. During that time, the wheels started spinning with me. And how could we prevent this? And there was a lot of technology out there talking about suits and things like that. But we found that operators or CERT team members who were utilizing these suits, when you're compressed with these Tyvek suits, your equipment's restricted. Individuals start going to what we call the self-preservation mode. You see, what I understood was this: when you put 5 individual officers who go inside of a cell, these individuals are coming from the regular housing units, and you're asking them, or you're tasking them, or the agencies were tasking them to go ahead and remove an individual. Well, let me tell you something. I can tell you firsthand, as well as thousands of corrections officers who go inside these cells traditionally to remove an inmate, how risky it is. And the number one thing that they always think of is really simple. I want to go home. I want to go home safe. And whoever's on the other side of that door is not gonna hurt me or my partner. I understood this mindset, but I also didn't understand the mindset of why do we have to teach or treat all the inmates the same? It doesn't make sense to me. I've seen mentally ill inmates hurt. I've seen non-English speaking inmates hurt. I've seen females hurt. I've seen violent inmates hurt because it's a one box, it's a one type of tactic. And once you open that door and you tell these operators or these officers to go in, nobody knows what the result's going to be. So I was one of the first individuals in the country to say, I want to do something different. I was laughed at by thousands and thousands of individuals, and you'll never change it. This is something that's been tried and true for decades now. So I asked my sheriff at the time if I could change the operation. And you know something? He gave me permission to do it. So I went around the country, I went to different schools, different DOCs, I've learned their tactics, and it was all the same thing. And you know what that CERT tactics, what their track record is? Thousands of officers hurt, thousands or countless inmates unnecessarily hurt and or killed. So my reasoning behind this, why I want to change this, I want to use technology. And I found the right technology to use, and really through people who believed in me, said, let's do it. So basically what happened was, and as I'm coming around this, you can understand this vision, is that I wanted to develop a way that whoever was on the other side of that door, whatever inmate that we had to deal with, we could deal with fairly, we could understand whatever situation they're in, and we could try to work through the process. And if we had to ever use an option, whatever option it was, that it could be measurable. And that's it. That was the key. That was the key of being able to deal with every inmate, regardless of where they come from, is that we can deal with it measurably. In other words, if I have to use 5 individuals and I said, okay, go in there, and whether they're African-American, whatever ethnicity they're from, whatever their gender is, I want to make sure that the results are always going to be equal. Now, there's not going to be different. So technology allowed me to do that. And so this is what we started doing. We utilize technology that looks just like this. I don't know if you can see that. Closer. There you go. And these are what they call Furbies, push balls. There's no metal, like traditional. There's no nothing metallic on here. And it's something that your kitty cat would play with. And this is what we use. This is what we use to get a behavioral response, to go into behavioral change, because when the accountability process comes, I want to know that the individual officers, how much force you used, I can tell you. Where this, where the force was applied, I can tell you. When I stopped, I can tell you. And that's what technology allowed us to do. Because if you follow the traditional way of utilizing physical force, it gets very personal. And what we're trying to do is, before it gets personal, I want to be able to de-escalate, be able to try and find out what is causing this problem, or from the inmate side of the house or the officer side, to completely try to neutralize. And therefore, that's what began the process, and that is what is caught on in over 35 different states. And so that's basically it, and that's what we teach.
Your Honor, that's the end of our presentation. We are open to any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. So we're going to go down.
Your Honor, if I may, in light of the presentations, I'd like to make a motion. The one I sent, I don't know if it's necessary for me to read the whole thing or just go through it, but I think in light of the presentations, it'd be appropriate to discuss the motion this time.
Go ahead, Mr. Pilarski.
Would you like me to read it in its entirety, or
just? You can read your motion.
Okay. Whereas through a referendum vote in May of 2021, the voting citizens of Allegheny County approved a referendum which limited the Allegheny County Jail's ability to respond to exigent circumstances by limiting the jail's use of a restraint chair, leg shackles, and chemical agents such as pepper spray, embodied in Section 205 of the Allegheny County Administrative Code, effective December 6, 2021. And whereas the members of the Allegheny County Jail Oversight Board recognize that circumstances do arise at the jail which require inmates to be moved from one cell, pod, or section of the jail to another for purposes of health treatment, mental health treatment, court appearances, and other necessary attention. And whereas the members of the Jail Oversight Board recognize that while the vast majority of inmates are cooperative with requests for movement, circumstances do arise in which an inmate is non-cooperative despite all manners of de-escalation and verbal intervention. And whereas the restrictions presented by Section 205 require the jail to implement alternative methods of necessary inmate movement in certain rare circumstances to ensure the safety of inmates and jail personnel. And whereas the Jail Oversight Board has presented with a motion to prohibit Corrections Special Applications Unit, CSAU, training and equipment identified in such training programs at the jail. And whereas it is considered the opinion of members of the Jail Oversight Board that no decision should be made regarding the Jail Oversight Board oversight without said members reaching a fully informed opinion as to the scope and degree of the matters before the Jail Oversight Board. And whereas I'm sorry, I lost my place. And whereas the members of the Jail Oversight Board are aware that the depiction of events and presentation of issues found on the internet and through secondhand sources can often present an incomplete picture, if not a complete diversion from truth and actual events. And whereas the members of the Jail Oversight Board have been presented with depictions of events and presentations of issues relating to CSAU training methods and practices, and whereas the members of the Jail Oversight Board have been presented with the information indicating that the CSAU training being conducted is consistent with Section 205 and presents an opportunity to maximize the use of de-escalation techniques and to minimize the use of force at the jail. And whereas the members of the Jail Oversight Board have been informed that the version of events proffered to the members of the Jail Oversight Board and the public does not accurately reflect the actual CSAU training being conducted at the jail. And whereas the members of the Jail Oversight Board consider it their obligation to determine the actual methods and scope of the training being conducted prior to attempting to prohibit such training. For those reasons set forth above, it is hereby determined the Allegheny County Jail Oversight Board shall forego any action regarding CSAU training at the jail until such time as each member of the Jail Oversight Board, or any alternative, members of the Jail Oversight Board designated by the Jail Oversight Board chair, have had the opportunity to personally observe a significant portion of said training at the jail so as to obtain an informed opinion as to whether such training is in the best interest of jail inmates and personnel, is consistent with Section 205 and all other legal obligations, and otherwise serves in the best interest of the residents of Allegheny County.
All right, so we have a motion from Mr. Pilarski. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
All right.